Can you please confirm the session is being recorded?
It is, yes.
Great. Good afternoon and welcome to the Virtual Design Review Panel. Shen, are there any changes to the agenda today?
No, there isn't.
Great. Any declarations of interest, conflicts of interest on behalf of the panel members? Great, we don't hear anything. So the second item on the agenda today is a mixed-use development located at 1290 South Service Road, 5 and 23 Vince Mazza Way. The lead planner in the file is Tim Vrooman. Good afternoon, Tim.
Good afternoon.
We're ready for your presentation. Please keep the presentation under 10 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Everyone can see the presentation on screen?
Yeah, you're good to go, Vince.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tim Froman. I'm Senior Planner with the Development Planning Suburban Team, and I'll be discussing the development proposal at 1290 South Service Road and 5 and 23 Vince Mazza Way in Stony Creek. So the proposal is for a 3-phase mixed-use development with surface and underground parking. The first phase is a 1-story commercial building in the southeast corner in this location, and 7 3-story mixed-use buildings with ground floor commercial space and stacked residential units above, fronting along Vince Mazza Way. And then 8 4-story stacked townhouse dwellings interior to the site, as well as a parkette and Woonarf located internal to the site, which is located in this area. The second phase is for 4 additional stacked townhouse dwellings in the northwest corner. And then the third and final phase would be the 28-story multiple dwelling, which contains 226 units. The development would include surface and underground parking as well. The subject property is a vacant parcel of land. It's bounded by South Service Road to the north, Vince Mazza Way represented to the east and south, and Winona Road is along the west. To the north is South Service Road and the QEW corridor, and existing under construction's townhouse dwellings and single-touch dwellings are across the way. To the east is Costco with the gas bar, and restaurants and other retail units with surface parking areas around. The area immediately to the east is presently undeveloped commercial land, as well as to the south is another undeveloped future phase of the commercial development. To the west, there's a Prestige Business Park, uses across Winona Road. Existing residential uses further to the south, which are within the employment lands and are anticipated for redevelopment. So this is these are the site photos. So this is looking from Winona Road. It's the view looking towards the site from the northwest, and then in the bottom left is the southeast elbow of Vince Mazza Way, looking into the site, and then the bottom right is at the southwest corner. These views are looking to the north from the west side and from the east side. And this is looking to the east to the existing retail development, the Costco and the other retail developments across the way. And then this is looking to the south from along Vince Mazza Way from the South Service Road, and also from the interior corner. And then another view is looking to the south from the north side of the north and sorry, the south and southeast sides of the site. And then lastly, these are the views looking to the west. This along Vince Mazza Way towards where you can see a bit of the transition from employment uses on the north side of it to the existing residential uses on the south, as well as along the South Service Road that shows the view into the business employment areas. And then again, this is looking from above Winona Road to see the employment uses that continue along towards the west. This is the proposed site plan for the property. Once again, the proposal is for a mixed-use development with ground floor commercial uses, fronting Vince Mazza Way, mix of 3- and 4-story stacked townhouse dwellings, interior to the site, and the 28-story multiple dwelling would be located here, the interior parkette, and then access to the parkade would be just located in this area next to it as well. We note how the development positions the building mass of the street with active ground floor uses, including both street-oriented commercial units and residential units. However, we also note the significant portion of the proposed open space and amenity area. This general vicinity is particularly for gathering and seating spaces along the active commercial frontages is within the public right-of-way. This is a sample elevation of the 4-story townhouses included with the submission. Now just moving on to the policy section. So this is the site's location, the intersection of Winona Road and South Service Road. The planned, it's noted that the planned 50 road transit and go transit and Hamilton's transit's hub is located just over to the east along the existing railway corridor at 50 road near the interchange with the QEW. The development of this transit hub is considered long term. And this is looking at this is Schedule E1. Again, the location of the site. It's noted that the proposed residential development is located away from established residential areas to the south across the hydro and rail corridors on the other side, and then across the QEW on the north. And it's clustered among the employment and commercial lands to the east and west. And again, with that. Those significant barriers in between with the QE and the rail corridor. So from the Urban Hamilton official plan, neighborhoods shall function as complete communities, including a full range of residential dwelling types and densities, as well as supporting uses intended to serve the local residents. They're meant to develop compact, mixed-use, transit-supportive, and active transportation-friendly neighborhoods. It's further designated as district commercial, which is for a range of retail uses intended to serve the daily and weekly needs of residents in the surrounding neighborhoods, and is also a focus of adjacent neighborhoods by creating a sense of place. The district commercial areas shall be planned and designed to be integrated with and accessible from the surrounding neighborhood with a range of transportation modes. And the retail buildings are to be located up to the street to create a strong pedestrian orientation. The urban design policies, to speak to that, is to ensure that new development is compatible with and enhances the character of the existing environment and locale, respects existing character, development patterns, built forms, and landscapes. Creates quality spaces by creating continuous animated street edge in urban environments, including transitional areas between public and private spaces. Create, reinforce, and emphasize important public vistas and view corridors, and minimize impact on neighboring buildings and public spaces by creating transitions in scale to neighboring buildings, ensuring adequate privacy and sunlight to neighboring properties, and minimizing the impacts of shadows and wind conditions. The property is further designated in the Winona secondary plan as district commercial. It's also in site-specific policy area E, the site being located right there. So again, with the policy themes, the intent of the district commercial in the secondary plan is to provide for larger scale commercial areas that serve the daily and weekly needs of the residents in the surrounding areas. Ensuring compatibility between different land uses, protect the views of the Niagara Escarpment and other natural features. Development shall be designed to protect and address the views of the Niagara Escarpment. On that note, it's worth considering the height and placement of the proposed 28-story tower, as this would be a significant transformation for the area, and built form, views and vistas, a skyline, microclimate impacts, etc., should be carefully considered, including the panorama of the Niagara Escarpment, given the location on the south side of the QW corridor. Design policies also speak to creating street and building design, promotes neighborhood vitality, pedestrian comfort, and promotes public transit and active transportation and recreational connections to the site. And principal entrances to commercial uses are to address the public street or through exterior open spaces adjacent. The site is currently, in effect, is zoned community shopping center in Stony Creek zoning bylaw. Council, through their CMU zoning, has approved the district commercial C6 zone, but that amendment is not yet final and binding. So looking at the distinctions, so the city of Stony Creek permits retail and service commercial uses, does not permit residential uses, and the maximum height is 20 meters. In the approved zoning under 05200, it permits retail and service commercial use as well. It also permits residential uses, but the intent is that the zone is predominantly commercial use, and the maximum height is 14 meters. Lastly, the questions before the panel today. What is the relationship of the proposal to this neighborhood character? Does it maintain and, where possible, enhance and build upon desirable established patterns, built form and landscapes? Does the proposal respect prominent sites, views, and vistas in the city? And does the proposal create comfortable pedestrian environments by locating principal facades and primary building entrances parallel to and as close to the street as possible, including ample glazing on ground floors to create visibility to and from the public sidewalk, including quality landscape edge along frontages where buildings are set back from the street, and using design techniques such as building step backs to maximize sunlight to pedestrian areas. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I hope you have happy to answer them.
Sorry, Vince, you kind of cut out there. I believe we're looking for the applicant to make their presentation, and to please keep it for 10 minutes. Shem, we're not able to hear you if you're trying to speak.
I think I was just going to open up the presentation on behalf of the ownership group. So my name is Fernando Puga. I work for Homes by DeSantis. We are joint partners with Melrose Developments and Movengo Developments on this project. And we've assembled a team that we think has prepared an excellent concept, what we have before you. And I'm going to defer to the team to present to the panel, but I want to thank the panel ahead of time for your time and consideration.
Shannon, can you unmute the phone number ending in 95? I think that's what Shem is using.
I've sent a request. Shem, if you can hear me, you'd have to, there you go.
How about now? Is that better?
Yep, that's great.
There we go. Okay. Okay. Thank you again, Fernando, for the introduction. My name is Shem Mishkovsky. I'm with KYMH and with the architecture firm, alongside with Scott Henderson, the landscape firm from Adesso Design. We also have Jared Marcus from IBI with us as well. So I will turn the first slide over to Jared. He's going to discuss some the planning and the policies that we encountered throughout the design. So Jared, I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, Shem. Thank you, members of the panel. Thank you, Tim, for that comprehensive policy overview. As Tim's explained, we're located in an area that's largely going through transition in Stony Creek. You have a mixed bag of land uses surrounding the development, Prestige Industrial to the west, established low-density residential neighborhoods north of the QEW, and south of the rail line. And then, of course, you have the big box store typology, commercial developments to our south and to our east. And the policy context, as Mr. Berman explained, is that these lands were converted from employment land uses during the Fruitland-Winona secondary plan process to the current district commercial designation and zoning on the subject lands today. And rightly, he said that there are restrictions to the residential types of uses on the lands. Now, when we were looking at this project, again, we saw it as an area in transition, and it differs slightly from where it was a few years ago when this initial conversion occurred. You now have the introduction of higher order transit through GO Transit at Centennial and 50 Road, and upcoming upgrades to the HSR in the area as well. And so we saw that this was an area that could benefit from the introduction of a different residential built form topology. And so our project sees a more residential intensive use while also implementing more small scale local commercial uses that would benefit the day-to-day or more day-to-day needs of the residents, future residents we hope will be on this site, as well as the few existing residents north and south of this area. And so to see our vision through, we would need official plan amendments and zoning bylaw amendment to allow those more intensive residential uses on the site.
Okay. Thank you, Jared. Okay. I want to kind of just take one step backwards here and just to bring up a previous plan that was done that did respect the district commercial, where we did look at having essentially commercial throughout the entire site. And as you can see by this plan, this was actually a ZBA concept that was approved June 2015. But however, our client, when reviewing the context, the immediate contextual area and the immediate adjacent uses, we found that a mixed-use residential development was more appropriate. We see ourselves kind of a linkage between what we want to say Winona and Winona Park. By being a mixed use, we complement both the commercial and the employment lands where we are situated currently. As you can see by the more close-up context plan, we have a lot of great things happening for us here. Again, with the employment lands, the commercial lands, we have access to parks, the QEW. Again, we have bike trails going right into Winona down through here. So, and as well as the transit, as Jared has mentioned. So, again, the opportunity to do mixed residential seemed like a very obvious, better solution than having just strictly commercial. That would just be, again, another just adding to the existing commercial as it is. And I think, as we all know, we couldn't have actually known that we're going to be in the situation where we are with the world in COVID, but commercial is not something that's becoming as desirable right now as residential at this point. So we did try to mix it up a bit and try to accommodate both. As Tim mentioned, our current plan, we have about 12 residential blocks for a total of 624 units plus 33 commercial. And what we've done here is we've located the commercial, which is the red, along Vince Mazza Way to complement what is existing right now. And we also use it as a way of buffering essentially the residential from that commercial. Now, our red blocks here are actually mixed use. We do have residential on the upper floors, and we have the commercial at the ground floors. And we left a little bit more of a buffer here for some public interaction and a little bit more of a public space at the corner here to address that corner as well. So Scott will get into more of the landscaping features, but I just wanted to point out that we are trying to keep this
porous and open, so that it doesn't feel like it's something that's like a typical townhouse development. I'm sorry for stereotyping, but essentially we are trying to make this more porous, having parquet so people can walk, bike, circulate throughout the site quite freely, and feels like it's an extension of the existing communities. It is a three-phased development. I'm not going to go into the exact phasing and how much per each, but we are thinking of how to phase this so that it can be rolled out into the market, obviously, properly, so that we're not overbuilding and that we can kind of do this responsibly if things should change. I'm not going to go into the design brief. I think everybody has the opportunity to read that. So again, the concept itself, we did try to maintain the 2 points of access, as I showed with the commercial along Vince Mazza. We didn't want to introduce anything along Winona Road because it does become a bridge eventually to cross to the QW. But we did have, again, the intent with the parquets and the porosity of the site, we did translate quite well, I have to say, into what the concept is now, and with the kind of the parquet in the center. Now, the parquet did evolve a bit from this kind of initial sketch, but the intent has always been there to provide that type of parquet, and then the corner tower to be kind of an anchor and a gateway into this entire area, because right now you do have that commercial to the east and employment lands to the west, and it just helps give it a bit of its own identity within that entire urban fabric. And this is essentially a rendering of the development once it's built out in its entirety. Again, you see the tower. We try to again make the tower unique in its shape, something that would again give the area its own identity, as well as then we introduced the residential stacked back-to-back units in the center here. They're 4 stories with some rooftop access, again providing further amenity to the residents. And right along here is that commercial space. And what we've done here, again, you can see that large kind of urban space. And in order to make this commercial viable, and this was very important, and we had a lot of discussions about this actually, is giving that lay-by parking along Vince Mazza Way. And I think if you're going to be doing that type of commercial development, you need to provide that ease of access and parking right in front of the stores that are going to be essentially benefiting from the clients coming in. Having the parking located within the site for these commercial units, it's not viable. It becomes a very cumbersome type of experience. I think people like to be able to pull up to the store and walk this entire area, and then it becomes a much more enjoyable and animated street in that sense. When we were looking at massing and build form for the tower, we could have done, say, a more large perimeter type of 16-story, 9-story type of building. However, we felt that this was obstructing the escarpment. It wouldn't have been a pleasant development. And same with having the tower kind of placed towards the south, it would cast shadows along our low rise. So we did opt to essentially put the tower into the north where it is now in the corner, which minimizes a lot of the shadow impact, the wind impact. And again, it acts as that gateway feature. So if anybody driving down the QW or entering the development. Our low-rise product, essentially, these are with some of them have commercial at grade and then residential for the floors up top. Again, it's typical of a very human scale type of massing. It's really, people can relate. It's very it's short. It reads more like a residential type of townhouse development along the Vince Mazza Way and against Winona. And again, just wanted to bring focus to the lay-by parking in the commercial uses down here. Again, very important, to have that very animated, walkable, accessible by visitors without again having to enter the site to circulate through and find parking. We found that was a very important strategy to making this entire commercial transition work between our development and what's happening to the east as well. Our unit blocks are essentially our low-rise blocks. They don't exceed 8 units in length, so they're fairly standard and typical in that sense. Having a long building across would have really walled off the site from the public. It would not have been perhaps as walkable and inviting. So again, there was a very conscious effort to make these blocks no more than 8 long. Some goes down as short as 3 or 4. And it just creates a bit more porosity in the site and opens it up and makes it more inviting. Along the South Service in Vince Mazza, we have the tower with a podium. We try to keep that podium somewhat in the same massing as our low rise. We did again open up that corner to allow for public art, restaurants, more social engagement essentially than you would typically see. The materiality of the development, we were looking at doing essentially a nice block for the low rise and then carrying that materiality kind of into the podium of the tower with some eaves and some nice contrasting dark charcoal pre-finished metals, aluminums, to kind of harmonize the whole thing so it does so the low rise does feed off the podium, for example, the tower, and vice versa, they complement each other. It makes it more of a harmonized, unified development. And again, just noting that lay-by in that commercial, as you can see, it can be a very active, very, very pleasant space. But again, it's very important to be able to have that access into these commercial units at grade, and then we'd have the residential above those. And again, it just helps to animate that street. And these would be our, say, typical back-to-backs or 4 stories with, again, some amenity space at the rooftop. We're trying to, again, we're really trying to sell the amenity for this. That's kind of the focus of this development. So these would be our typical block, or the look of our typical block. So we try to create a bit of a rhythm. And again, we carry some of the architectural elements, as you know, these kind of taller walls between the mixed use blocks and our residential blocks here, and we try to keep that architecture consistent across the entire development, so it does be like one community. And through the materials and these kind of architectural gestures, it really ties into the tower podiums and the commercial corner at Vince Mazza Way as well. I'd like to just turn over to Scott. He's going to just briefly discuss the landscaping and the winner of some of the really great amenities that we provided. Scott, you there?
I'm just going to provide a little caution with time. We're over the 10 minutes, so if we can start to wrap it up, just so we have enough time to get through the panel's discussion and comments. Okay,
fair enough. Okay, I'll briefly just go over the landscape that I think Scott's been having trouble with his phone. The goal is we want to create a complete community with a variety of recreational amenities, which are pedestrian focused. The Winnerf-inspired parquet with multiple connected amenities, such as covered pavilions, barbecues, community gardens, play structures, cafe-style seating, and a spray pad, which then can be used in the winter as a skating rink. We had smaller plaza spaces between the residential units that can be used as informal seating areas for public art, display of community mailboxes, etc. As well as urban plaza to the southeast corner of the site has opportunities for outdoor dining, activating the street at a pedestrian scale. We had significant space for public art and the opportunity at the southeast corner. Lay-by parking, again, was to help kind of animate the streetscape, provide that ease of access and use. And just a very generous rooftop amenity area on the podium of the tower, and biking and walking trails that connect to the larger network beyond the site. John Wilson Park, for example, Monona Park. This includes a looped trail within the MTL setbacks south of the South Service Road, which is essentially, again, right through here. So, and I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This time we provide an opportunity for each panel member to seek clarification on any points that they may require further explanation. Please hold your comments for the panel discussion portion. Questions only, please. We'll start with James.
Thank you, Vince, and thank you very much for the presentation. I guess I have a couple of quick questions for city planning staff. First of all, what's the status of these applications? Have they been formally submitted and is processing underway?
The applications have undergone a formal consultation. and that process will be complete. But so far, no formal planning applications have been submitted.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Tim. And I'm not sure if this is for Tim or Shannon. I'm not sure who may have the background, but is there any clarity as to why the policy framework presently prohibits residential uses within this quadrant? Is it a precursor to the transit evolving, or was it a matter of community facilities or a matter of compatibility with the employment area? Any comments on that?
James, it's Anita Fayback. If I recall correctly, and if I'm recalling the district commercial designation correctly, I believe the prohibition of residential comes from there. So when they did the commercial hierarchy back when they brought the Urban Hamilton official plan into effect, that was a sort of like a key policy basis that the district commercial would be protected for commercial and would not permit residential.
If I may add to that, just to clarify, so it is the current Stony Creek zoning that prohibits residential, or that just does not permit it. It's not a specifically prohibited use, but the district commercial, it does permit limited residential in the form of dwelling units above commercial uses, and not necessarily multiple dwellings. So the predominant commercial form is within the zoning framework.
Okay, and I guess the extension from that and what's actually happening in the neighborhood. And there's growing residential on the other side of the railway tracks, strong residential community to the north. The GO and HSR transit hub that's evolving. Does that include a GO train, or is it just GO bus? What I'm wondering is, does it qualify under places to grow as a priority transit corridor and a major transit station area? Which in that case, that certainly would support a rethink in terms of the prohibition of residential uses. So I'm not sure who can assist with that. Do we know what's coming into the GO?
From my understanding of the environmental assessment, the GO station is dependent on the HSR, the LRT extension. So at this time, cannot really provide any further comment on what will happen, as that's a longer term of the LRT, and at this time we don't know what will become of that. So,
I guess on the basis of compatibility, because we do have the city's, the employment designation is immediately to the west of this. Is there any concerns about compatibility? And I would love to know. One of the listed study requirements was an air drainage analysis brief. Does that have something to do with potential air impacts from an employment use?
It's not so much from the employment use. It's the character of this. It's part of the Fruitland Winona secondary plan due to its proximity to the grape and tender fruit activities in the greenbelt that are immediately to the south of these areas. So making sure that the overall wind patterns don't adversely impact the ability for their growth. So
agriculture.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question with respect to the height of the tower for the downtown. Were predicated on the height of the actual escarpment brow. Is there any correlation here between the height of this tower at 28 stories and the height of the escarpment that would be directly adjoining?
Sorry, James. The tower itself, I believe we're at 82 meters for the tower height itself. If that further analysis is required, I think that would something that we would have to provide at the SPA.
Okay, well, I guess I could expand on that. I mean, where did the 26 stories or 82 meters come from? What was sort of the design thinking of the design basis for that amount of height?
A lot of it does come from just density in terms of what we can support on the site. We didn't want to do, we could have done the 16 and 9-story type of massing, but we felt that this was a comfortable, supportive, essentially, in terms of the phasing, the parking, and just kind of what the area we thought would be able to support. It's not necessarily a technical 20 stories that we've defined. it was again based on just what the site could support in terms of having distributed that massing and the residential and commercial throughout the site.
Okay. Thank you very much. Those were all my questions.
Thank you, James. Can I ask Jackie now to make some comments or clarifications? Jackie?
It's questions, right? So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jackie, you are unmuted, but we can't hear you. Vince, do you want to maybe move to Ute and then we see if
Well, you want me to move on from Jackie?
Yeah, and we'll circle back.
Okay, we'll come. Is Yuta here?
I'm here.
Oh, great. Okay. Do you have any clarifications?
Yes, maybe it's more for city staff. Have you or is there anything in the background work that starts looking at perhaps more of a secondary plan strategy for the entire node? Maybe in preparation or in advance of potential GO extensions. I know that Grimsby has gone through that exercise at their interchanging at Casablanca Boulevard, but I don't know how this specific site sits within the larger picture of mass transit and intensification.
Was that directed to Tim, Yuta?
Yeah.
Is Tim there?
I'm here. I would want to defer to staff within our community planning group, just if there's any further planning beyond what the Fruit Winona secondary plan already envisions. It did outline some block servicing strategies, but this is not part of those areas. So as far as I'm aware, there isn't anything in the works for any more close to the ground level planning for this interchange at this time.
So Anita can't add anything to that?
Through the chair, no, I'm also not aware of any particular secondary plans that are underway. I mean, I think as far as some of the previous work done through the policy group, they looked at the major transit station areas and densities, but there's, as far as I'm aware, there's no plan to do any more detailed secondary planning or even tertiary planning for some of those station areas.
Okay.
Thank you, Anita.
Yuta, did you have anything further?
No, that's all. Thank you, Beth.
Okay, thank you. Colin?
I want to ask about the Woonerf at the park. Is that doubling as a fire route? Is that why there's a kind of has to be a road through?
Colin, Scott Henderson, I've finally gotten unmuted. That was the intent. The original intent was that it would be a fire route.
It's no, because Woonerf is typically like a shared road for vehicular access, so it would only be fire access, no personal vehicle access.
There would be no vehicular access other than emergency vehicles.
Okay. That's my only question. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Colin. Yasin? Yasin, you with us?
I'm with you.
Great.
Just to try to understand it, I'm looking at your diagram on page 11, which is the concept diagram. And I'm just curious to know, sorry, that's, I have a different deck. I have pages 11 to 25, what you submitted for review. It's the site diagram. It's called on a design brief. Yeah, that. So I'm just curious to understand how you thought this site related to the residential development across QEW there. because I'm trying to contextualize the residential response, and that's the only thing I can see, because otherwise it feels like an island site on its own. So I was just wondering if you could respond to that relationship, because you're not recognizing it in your diagram and you're not acknowledging it. So.
Right. Well, we are somewhat cut off, I want to say, from the residential to the north and to the south, and just by sheer infrastructure in a sense. So, so by actually introducing residential in this area, we are trying to bridge that gap between the two neighborhoods. Otherwise, if we were to put all commercial here, for example, or employment land, it would really severe Winona essentially as being a north neighborhood and a south neighborhood. So by having that mixed use, it is that kind of amalgamation, I want to say, of residential from the north and the south meeting with employment and commercial lands.
Okay.
In terms of the vernacular of the architecture, I know, again, it doesn't necessarily have to mimic either one, I don't think. I think what it had to do is just the use would have to speak to the fact that it is helping bridge, again, that north and south neighborhood.
Okay. So I guess your treatment of the retail edge on the southeast side is a response to Costco, or are you foreseeing some other development across there coming up?
There is going to be more commercial, from what I understand. It is a response to, obviously, that there is already commercial happening at that site. To try to put residential on the ground floor there, I think would not be a pleasant place to be, essentially. Having it elevated at least one story does make it a bit more usable or livable, I would say, from a residential standpoint. So it is a bit of a product of referencing context that's already there and having to kind of complement and play off of what's already happening.
Okay. But would you not agree that your Winona Road is your main thoroughfare, like your main street?
It is, but it goes into a bridge across the QEW. It's not it's going to be fast architecture. It's something you're going to go drive by at 60 clicks an hour. You're not going to really notice and stop and get out of your car and walk the street. Vince Mazza.
Well, the only reason I say that is that it leads. It's a direct route to the main amenity of this whole region, right? Which is the lake.
That's right.
And so I would have thought that's kind of your the way you would respond in terms of your main street, so to speak, and the way you might position some of the program. But anyhow, I take your point in terms of how you view the other developments coming up. Can I just ask, in regards to, I see that your tower in your drawings is a different type of floor plate than what it is in the 3D view. So what stage of development is all of that? Because you show a very different plan configuration in the plan drawings, and then in the 3D it looks very different.
Yeah, certainly. So the plan drawing, that's essentially the boundary of the suites. And then eventually, when we were further trying to develop the design for the DRP, we went with more of a cylindrical shape. So essentially what we've added, or you could say what we were proposing to eventually do is we're going to have balconies kind of wrapping the tower and spiraling kind of up. So when the plan was developed, it was developed with the suite and the layout of the tower from an architectural building code standpoint. And then now we started to develop more of the urban design, and that's kind of how we got to the rendering. We thought, you know what, let's make this iconic. Let's not look at just a typical tower. Let's give it something that's gonna make it noticeable from QW.
So can I then, to that point, I guess this is it's maybe two questions in one. You've mentioned the escarpment as a datum line or a reference point quite a bit. And I think the first time you mentioned it as a restriction on height. And then you mentioned it in relation to your massing strategy going from 16 to 9 and then opting for this arrangement. I have I have a question about the escarpment. Why would you, I know the escarpment is an issue in the tall building guidelines when we're closer to the city center, but here there is nothing of this height. And so I'm just wondering, are you following the guidelines as a reference? Is that why you're responding to that, or is that your own intent, your own strategy that you feel that the escarpment is an issue?
I wouldn't say it's an issue. You want to respect the escarpment when you can. You could have tried for 40 stories here, but we have to be realistic and again, just be respectful. We could have made that tower taller, but then we had probably shadow issues with the community to the north. So there's a bit of you're playing kind of both angles with escarpments, with shadows, and just what the site can comfortably support. It's not necessarily a hard technical design or response, but there's multiple kind of driving factors to why this tower is where it is and the height of it.
Okay, last question is just in the distribution of density across the site, and the way you've I guess come up with one distinct 28-story tower and the rest are 4-story buildings. I'm again going back to your comment about not varying it from 16 to 9 to. I'm just curious to understand why you made that decision, because that would make this site distinct and different than what's happening on the north of the QEW, right?
Yeah.
And so why, I'm just wondering why you, in terms of the distribution of the density, was there a limitation of what you could do? Because if you went to a different massing or different height, you would have more land available, right?
Yes, we had various iterations of massing throughout the site. And again, some of this is also responding to what is happening in the market. And frankly, I hate to use the word COVID, but we are noticing that there isn't as much of a demand for multi-unit condo living. I mean, I know we have a tower, and I do recognize that, but we're trying to kind of appeal that there is some people that are looking for more of a townhouse, more of a back-to-back, and there is a bit of a response or still need for that type of condo tower. So the massing is really, it has changed quite a bit, and there's been multiple iterations. Having the tower here, it's a phase 3 in all of this, right? Phase 1 and 2 is all low rise. So we are trying to respond to essentially what's happening right now in terms of the market and what people are looking for as well.
Is the tower phase 1?
The tower phase 3.
Phase 3, sorry. Okay. And last question: the parking at below grade is for the whole site, right? So you're gonna build all the parking together, or in phases as well?
It's been phased.
Okay. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Yasin. Tim.
My questions have been addressed, Vince. We have to get to comments. Thanks.
Okay.
Vince, can I just remind you to go back to Jackie?
Yeah, we will right now. Jackie?
Thank you. I lost internet connection there for a minute, but Colin asked my question. Thank you.
Oh, great. Okay, I'm sorry, Tim, I didn't hear what you said. You said you had no questions then?
Oh, that's right. They've already been covered.
Yeah, me too. I do want to say though that I think we all are pleased that they've come before the panel before they've made their applications. And you have addressed the current market conditions in an interesting way, because what you're saying is absolutely true in our experience up here as well in Ottawa. So the response to the marketplace is bang on. Okay, so we're going to move to we'll now close the question and answer session. We'll, based on the information provided by city staff and the applicant, each panel member will now provide feedback and recommendations. And we'll start with James.
Thank you. My comments will be, excuse me, just ain't too many. Comments will be brief. And this is a more challenging project for the panel to respond to because we're not really into detailed urban design and architectural issues as much as responding to a land use proposal at a planning process level. But you know, I appreciate that the district commercial block is a very challenging, or excuse me, the district commercial designation and zoning that will unfold on the site is a very challenging framework within which to do mixed use development because of the limitations. And I do like and appreciate the manner in which you are incorporating the at-grade commercial into those residential buildings. I think that's a pretty unique way because I think what it's essentially saying is that, you know, it's no longer a site that's entirely viable as a commercial site, but it is a site that can maintain a good function and a good longer-term municipal use for mixed use, with residential effectively becoming the priority land use. A comment I heard early in the discussion was that the residential along Vince Mazza Way was essentially being used as a buffer. I'm not sure that that's the correct design response in terms of how to accommodate the commercial. One of the challenges of the site is that it's very much an island. It doesn't have immediate proximity to other residential areas or amenity spaces, public service facilities. So, you know, my suggestion would be maybe try to beef up the on-site amenity and the on-site vitality of this neighborhood. So maybe look at taking some of those commercial uses and potentially punching through a street. Could be a condominium street, doesn't have to be a public street, but actually try to create some type of a retail main street, or you'd have an internal focused street that could very much be a gathering place and a focal point for this development, because as it is now, it's effectively, it's building itself with walls, trying to protect itself from, you know, busy district commercial uses, destination commercial uses to the east and industrial uses to the west. I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Vince.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go back to Patrick.
Yes, thank you, Vince. My only comment is thank you for the green spaces that you've created. I think they'll be very important to the residents. I think the parks around the neighborhood are too far away, so just focus very well and design them very well because they will be very well used. Thank you.
Okay, you said.
Thank you, Vince. My comments will really gravitate towards the larger master planning exercise. I think it's one of the questions pertain to whether you responded to the surrounding pattern or established pattern, other than the established pattern of Massey, of Winona and Vince Mazza Way in the internal driveway routes going through the big box plaza. There's nothing that you can respond to. So I think it falls within your purview and responsibility to actually develop or envision what that future node can evolve into, which will have a ripple effect on how you strategize your own little corner, especially in where you locate your mixed-use retail. I don't know if where you're locating the current retail as shown on this diagram is where it makes sense. Maybe it makes sense further along or further west or east towards the potential redevelopment of the Costco site. I really don't have a good sense of how you can strategize and locate your different elements without having a bigger picture. And once you go through that exercise, I think the pieces start to fall into place, so you can really better understand how maybe a larger open space system permeates the entire commercial node or future district, and how you respond to that, how the entire retail strategy is laid out and the framework of it is laid out, and how you respond to that, and in result, how the residential will respond to that. Right now, your current diagram, the way it looks in this page, it really creates walls of a wall, and I don't feel that, although you are putting an enormous amount of attention to detail with a Woolnorth and a Central Park and parkettes and whatnot and playgrounds, it doesn't form a cohesive open space network, not even within your specific site. So the moment you kind of first understand better where you are located and how the future framework will work, I think that will translate into something that doesn't feel as designed per facing as much as it does currently. So I think you will have to look into ensuring that that parquet is actually at the crossroads of a series of roads, internal roads, where not only the buildings immediately fronting onto it have the benefit of the views and vistas. Your absolutely amazing Woodnerf doesn't go anywhere. And then that interface of parking in behind your live work on Vince Mazza Way towards the existing or the future residential mid-rise buildings. It's a very unfortunate interface with your wonderful mid-rise and missing middle elements that you're proposing. And finally, that larger structure exercise will really tell you where you can go taller or where you can actually start transitioning from a landmark tall element into something that goes back to your missing middle element. So there's no stark transition from a tower to a sea of I don't know, 6-story, 4-story buildings. So thank you for coming, and hopefully we get to see the evolution of this project. Back to you, Vince.
Okay, thank you very much, Yuda. Colin?
Okay. Again, thank you for coming early. It's great to see that we get an opportunity and you get some kind of have a discussion with us early in the process. Your presentation was great. It was you're clearly thinking of some of the right urban design principles, like on-street parking, organizing the interior of the site around a central park-like gathering place. I would really emphasize, as Jackie did, the importance of that park. And then I think you've done a good job of kind of grasping the importance of that and creating this central space. What I think could be improved is how you get to that space. I see, like on this graphic here, the kind of central park and then a linear park up and down. I think you could think about it more like a central park as the heart of the site and a series of greenway or linear parks leading to that space. I mean, really the test that you want to pass is, for people living here, would they feel comfortable letting their kids walk to this space on their own? And to do that, you want to minimize the number of streets or internal roads that they're crossing. And then when people do have to cross those roads, you prioritize the pedestrian in that scenario, especially if you're talking about skating, which is wonderful. So people are going there all times of year. So you want to make it as safe as possible. I question the decision of creating a parquet on the southeast corner there, or like a kind of plaza on the corner. I mean, I've just seen too many times in this kind of context where there's really busy, fast, harsh arterial roads. I've seen too many times in communities across the GTHA where those little corner plazas are devoid of humans. And I'd hate to see that here. And I think as for the developer, your money is better spent on the interior, providing amenities for residents than it is on that corner situation, which is not going to be used really well for a very long period of time. So great work. Focus on the public amenities and keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Yasin?
Thanks, Vince. Yeah, I think I echo most of the comments that have been made. I feel the right intents are there. Again, in all honesty, I'm focused on the same diagram because I see that as the kind of the core sort of construct for the site, so to speak, because it's where the bones of our scheme are. But I feel like all the ideas you have about permeability to the edges, trying to get ways through, they're all the right intents. But I feel like the massing is kind of strewn across the site. It feels like it's not creating the spaces. It's something I think is not in the right balance. And so I do agree with, I think it was James and Uto both made the remark about potentially reorienting your entries to the site and perhaps reorienting the parquet to create some kind of a centralized focus. So partially a landscape focus, also partially kind of to break up the whole site so that it's more of a street pattern as opposed to kind of a walled fortress condition where you enter a gated community, which is what it feels like. And so part of it I know is because how you're entering the below grade car park, but I sense that the way all the buildings are being distributed, it doesn't seem to have the right balance in the way it's trying to connect to everything around it. I foresee that potentially you have there's another site on the northeast corner of Vince Mazza Way that you might connect to in terms of similar scale of development. But it feels like the highest point of the site should be the north side, and then it kind of comes to a mid-rise level and then to a low level as it moves to the south. So I still advocate the kind of the shifting mass. Like I keep thinking that it's not all either high or low. There's a mid-block condition, mid-size condition that's still missing, and that will create the balanced distribution across the site. I'll leave it at that.
I'll go, Vince.
Yes, please go.
I will go. Yeah, I'm here. Thanks, Vince. So I'll just build on some of the previous comments, specifically Uta's and James. I mean, the fact is we shouldn't be looking at this proposal right now until the city really gets its head around whether or not residential uses make sense on this site. It's just quite mystifying to me that that I guess the door has been open to permitting residential through the new zoning bylaw. I'm not understanding the basis for that at all. This is clearly meant to be a district commercial node. Maybe one day it could be a mixed use node, should be a mixed use node, but the plan's not there for that. So there's a missing piece here at a more macro scale in terms of both land use and urban design. I mean, how is this larger place going to work structurally in terms of connections, in terms of amenities? So, and unfortunately, you haven't given us a context plan, which is a requirement, a submission requirement. We don't get them very often, so it's not surprising. But if you had given us a bit of a context plan to show us what you anticipate happening on the sites to the east and the south, this might have made more sense to us. But you've heard it called an island. It is an island. Building islands is not how you build cities. But this is Stony Creek. It's a suburban community, and that's how the suburbs often get built. So maybe we just have to accept that. So I'll turn to some more constructive comments, but I do want to urge the city to really think very carefully about this as a land use proposition. It may make sense, but additional planning really needs to be done for the larger area to make sure that does make sense, number one, and that there's a larger theory and plan for how this whole place will work as a neighborhood, because right now this is a pretty small island. So as an island, how can we make the best of it if in fact you do get the permission to do residential? I'll just make a few suggestions. This has been hinted at in earlier comments. There is a lack of coherence to the design of this development. There are some very interesting elements you've got here in terms of open space. The live-work unit idea, I think this is, I assume it's somewhat speculative. I'm not so sure that you're going to get a whole lot of commercial on here, but it's a nice idea. I think there is just the site's broken up by a number of things, and I think there's an opportunity to bring some more structure to the site. So a couple of suggestions. The parking, the surface parking along the eastern kind of edge of the site, I think would be better along at the south end of the site, north-south, so that you come into the site from the south. There's some parking there to serve the commercial uses and maybe some visitor parking. And then you've got the rest of the site where you can focus on it as a neighborhood that's very pedestrian oriented. Right now, the parking over where it is, to me, just breaks things up a bit too much. It makes it harder for the tower, for example, to relate to the rest of the development. Right now, that tower is not relating. It's like an island within the island. It's got parking and a driveway that kind of separate it from the rest of the community. I don't think the open space network is really working. A lot of creativity has been put into the park design. It is broken up by the VNRF, which I understand really won't be used except in emergencies. However, it really is not making the park very functional. You know, you've got a playground in someone's front yard, which just doesn't work. So my suggestion, if you can imagine it, is that to actually, and this may sound sort of counter-urban, is that you create a ring road within the site that might all be designed like a WinEarth and might not all be used by vehicles, but it does provide some access to parking. You could have some parallel visitor parking on that street. And then internal to the site, have a central park, which is more central, and then have everything else kind of relate to it, including the tower site. So a more of a coherent pattern to how vehicles move around the site and how parking is worked, so you don't have these little bits and pieces of parking scattered about, which really kind of break up, to me, what could be a very strong and unified public realm. The tower, just quick comment on the tower. I mean, this is another thing I think the city needs to get its head around is this the right place for a landmark tower? Hard to answer that question. There's the density question that goes to that, but I think this is what we have to get used to seeing along the QEW increasingly are towers that capitalize on views to the lake, maybe don't spoil views to the escarpment. But the reality is this is like walking into a museum, a gallery in a museum, and you're the only painting on the wall. I mean, you've got to be a spectacular tower. And I don't think you're quite there yet. I think the circular idea is a good one, but the balconies there need a lot of thought. The tower really, if anything, maybe should be taller. I appreciate maybe there isn't the demand for more units there, but a taller and slender tower, I think, would be more appealing from those sort of long views. This is like a stubby version of the Marilyn Monroe Tower in Mississauga, and just doesn't quite work as a beautiful landmark building. So I urge you to explore some other architectural approaches to that. And I will leave my comments at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I'll pass the chair. Used with Hello?
Vince, you appear to be cutting in and out.
Okay. I'll try and keep it short then. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I think the notion of the use of this site converting from strictly retail to commercial uses to residential is up to the city. That argument's not for this panel. But the notion of how the site should be treated, or options how it could be treated, I think the comments that have been made so far are on the money. The notion of higher densities towards the north with some mixed mid-rise density makes some sense. The notion of a green in the center of the site as a large park with the housing wrapping around it, perhaps even access to the garage, to the edge of the green in some places makes sense. The notion of how the retail is going to work on which face of Vince Mazza Way, whether it's on the east face or the south face, I think the way you're planning it is really to give you the options to provide the retail if the retail works. And I think that's pretty well it. I mean, yeah, it is an island within itself. It's trying to bridge the north and the south. I think there's merit in what you're doing. I think that there should be at some point a rethink of how much commercial we provide along the QE, and the notion that in the future we need to look at introducing residential uses to keep the vitality, because the commercial uses will continue to be in transition. And we're experiencing that right now, where we're looking at redeveloping existing commercial sites where we're introducing residential uses. And it's helping to support the performance or lack of the retail. So I think we'll leave it at that. I would like to know if the proponent would like a summation. If not, and you're happy with the comments that you've heard so far, and they're clear to you, then we can thank you for your presentation and our meeting here.
Yes, thank you very much, guys. No, we've been taking notes as we have the various comments. Again, appreciate everyone's time and feedback. It's been definitely well received.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.